Welcome to Peace Halifax 2020. This is the 5th anniversary of Peace Halifax, which was created as a gift of peace to the city of Halifax to honor the United Nations International Day of Peace, which happens every year on the 21st of September. You're joining us today on the 19th of September because it's a Saturday and a day that we can take the entire day to be with peace, to consider peace, to practice peace, and to learn about peace. Today we have as our keynote speaker, Sister Gayatri Naraine. Born and raised in Guyana, she is a senior meditation teacher with the Brahma Kumaris and has been the representative of the Brahma Kumaris in the United Nations in New York since 1980. Where as a young woman, she has grown up and matured spiritually and as a professional, bringing a spiritual lens to political and systemic and world issues. And today she's going to explore with us how we can create peace in ourselves and the world, especially at this time of global crisis. So we say a warm welcome to Sister Gayatri Naraine as she joins us this afternoon in Halifax, a place she has visited before, but here we have her via Zoom. So welcome, Gayatri, and thank you for coming.
Let me begin with Happy Peace Day, Halifax. I was asked to explore how we can create peace in ourselves and in a world at a time of global crisis. I would like to begin with some broad brushstrokes using the template of the Sustainable Development Goals with its 17 goals and a lot of targets under each goal. When the United Nations came up with this agenda, they had this reachable aspiration of accomplishing the agenda in 2030. Now it's 2020 and the world is quite a different place. And 2030 is not that far away. When I look at the Sustainable Development Goals and the agenda, I usually see a very complex agenda with many different pieces to it. But for my own sake, I try to simplify it and to use a simple formula. So I will share with you my simple formula of looking at peace in the world through the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. The brushstrokes that I spoke about are the 3 interconnecting landscapes of the Sustainable Development Goals. The 3 landscapes are economic, social, and environmental. And I would add a 4th, which is the spiritual landscape. They designed a process in order to achieve these goals. And the process is actually encapsulated into 5 P's. Peace, partnership, people, planet, and prosperity. And so I would use these 5 P's and these 4 landscape to explain to you in my exploration today how I make sense and meaning out of something very complex, but using the spiritual principle of simplicity. I I would say that the P of prosperity goes with the landscape of economic. I would say the P of people go with the landscape of the social. And I would say the P of planet goes with the landscape of the environment. But then the other two P's of peace and partnership, I would say that they belong to the spiritual landscape. So let's start with peace and partnership within the context of the spiritual landscape. Spiritually speaking, peace and nonviolence are the original nature of the being, which is called the soul. When one journeys within, it is normally with the intention to explore and to remove the layers of the acquired identity in order to discover the true and authentic self. Well, what we also discover is that lying at the foundation of the true and authentic self are peace and nonviolence. So peace is not just a state of mind, but it is an authentic state of being. It's like my whole being constitutes peace and nonviolence. This state of peace and nonviolence emerges out of inner solitude, inner silence, inner quietness, and an inner stillness. It is in this unlimited space within the soul that possibilities are seen. And within these possibilities, creativity emerges. So there's a line in the UNESCO Constitution, and that line rings so true, because what the line says is that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. So when we start the work of reconstructing the inner landscape of peace in the soul, then we can have the wisdom, we can have the sense, we can have the strength to then look at partnership from another perspective, which I call the spiritual perspective. Partnership is usually to cooperate for a common cause, to conserve together that which will be beneficial to the people and to the planet. But spiritually speaking, at the core of cooperation is love. And people come around that love because it's a love for a greater good. They cooperate for that greater good. So cooperation or partnership is to remove the silos and the divisions that we have created in our world, and to look at the whole entity, at the whole system, and then to offer in a cooperative way our strengths, our skills, our talents, our expertise, and of course our resources. And so I call this a cooperative way of seeing the world and coming together for a greater good. To see the world as visionaries would, to see the world without borders, without boundaries, without barriers. Or perhaps to look at the planet Earth the way the astronauts did from the moon, and to see it as this fragile piece of jewel. As part of the 75th celebrations of the United Nations, which is happening this year, amongst many other things, 2020, the Secretary General reached out to the world asking them the question, what kind of future do you want? So from this inner landscape of peace and nonviolence, and looking at the fragmented world through the cooperative way, I ask myself that question too. What is the future I want? And so I'm going to share it with you through this spiritual principle of simplicity, looking at this complex Sustainable Development Goals agenda. So I will use the 4 landscapes and the 5 Ps to describe the future that I want. So landscape 1, the economic landscape with the P of prosperity. At this time in our world, there is so much anxiety at many different levels, but particularly at the economic level, because it's a time when people are losing their jobs, unemployment is rising, and even if they're not losing their jobs, they are seeing a decrease in their paychecks. But the bills remain the same. And here I am, looking at this landscape, thinking about the future that I want. So, being a visionary that I would like to think myself as, I'm looking at what lies beneath the landscape that is so obviously breaking apart. What is below it? What is there with potential that if we tap into, maybe we will see a different future? So I decided that I would look through the lens of peace and nonviolence, of course, for my spiritual landscape, and I would look at it in the cooperative way, and I would look at prosperity in relation to abundance rather than scarcity. And so this slogan that I see written across the landscape, the economic landscape, is that there's enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. And so taking that up, I then start looking at my future through the creation of a wealth that would lead me to abundance and prosperity. And so I look at it first as monetary wealth, seeing wealth as money and seeing money as sacred. Can I use money in a way that is life-generating, that brings dignity and worth to people's life and lifestyles? I look at my physical body and I look at my physical health as wealth. Do I see my physical health and well-being as valuable assets to this prosperity that I want? Then I look at the emotional wealth. Can I invest in self-care and self-compassion as essential to a stronger immune system? Then, of course, there's mental wealth. At a time in which mental illness is on the increase, can I use the currency of my thoughts to help build resilience and to help build capacity? Can I give that value to my thoughts as a very important currency? And then the spiritual wealth. Spiritual wealth is very important and very vital in the pursuit of happiness, because happiness is an intrinsic quality in the soul. So for me to go in pursuit of happiness, I first of all have got to embark on that pursuit from within myself. So if I were to look at the economic landscape and I were to see it through wealth creation and the potential that the landscape has with its abundance, then I would describe prosperity with everything I've said above. Now, I'm looking at landscape number 2, which is the social landscape. And then the P on that landscape is people. So again, I'm looking through the lens of peace and nonviolence, through a cooperative way. And I'm looking and asking, what is my perspective on this social fabric of human beings with their network of actions and interactions and consequences, but most important, of their tapestry of relationships? How do I look at the tapestry of relationships in my community? First and foremost, I would be looking at inclusive communities. At this time of social distancing and lockdown, inclusive communities are very, very essential. So I would create an awareness of safety and of protection, of a place where people can feel safe, they can feel respected, they can feel comfortable being themselves. They could have a feeling of acceptance, and they could see their communities as places where there's caring and where there's sharing. And this would give them a profound sense of belonging. There won't be words like aliens, but words that would include. I would see my communities as places where we make the effort to break down barriers, where we make the effort to develop high levels of trust, where we give people the opportunities to express themselves and to be who they are, bringing their differences to enrich our learnings and to enrich our understanding of things that they may have that I may find different, and things that I may have that they would find different. So it's a meeting point of differences becoming opportunities for deeper learnings. And then I would look to see how I could foster friendships. I would look for ways to connect. I would look for spaces where people's voices could be heard. And I would want to listen to those voices, to listen to not just the tone and the expressions, but listen to the meaning and the purpose behind the voice, because it reveals so much more than just what the words are saying. But most of all, in this fabric of the social, I would like to see us celebrate multiculturalism, because there's such a richness in that. The third landscape would be the environmental landscape, but of course the P of planet. Looking through the lens of peace and nonviolence, and again through the cooperative way, how do I see the state of Mother Earth? What is Mother Earth showing me about herself? I think she's showing me a lot, but she's also calling on me to have a different relationship with her. And so I would look at what we so popularly call as eco-friendly. I would look at the deeper meaning of that word in my life. And I would want to have an eco-friendly awareness, recognizing the fragility of our home planet and the need to change my lifestyle in order to live in harmony with nature, in order to listen to the call of Mother Earth. I would also develop an eco-friendly attitude of gratitude, the gratitude of taking time to smell the roses, an attitude that even though the breath that I breathe and take for granted is connecting me to the oxygen in the atmosphere coming from the trees, coming from nature, I would pay attention to that. And so breathing becomes an art of life. It becomes something that is done intentionally. Deep breathing, in which I'm breathing that fresh air that's offered by nature. But what am I breathing out? That is telling nature that I'm thankful, this attitude of gratitude. I'm breathing out peace as my way of gratitude. And then, of course, I'll have the eco-friendly behaviors. I will choose to change. I wouldn't want to be compelled to change. I will go for a plant-based diet. I would change my diet. And I would choose products that conserve the environment rather than destroy and create more waste. So having shared my vision with you, I would like to say in conclusion, when I am asked the question, what can I do and what difference can I make? Well, I share these 4 landscape and I share the 5 Ps. And I make it simple so that I can participate in a process that is meaningful to me as an individual and is meaningful to me in a way that I can use the spiritual principle of simplicity to engage another in this process of building peace through nonviolence and coming together in the cooperative way to accomplish things that we may otherwise see as impossible. But the principle of simplicity makes the impossible possible. So let us stay with that 4th landscape, the landscape of peace and partnership, which is cooperation. And let's use our inner creativity from this spiritual landscape. And let's move forward. And let's move forward in a way that we can be visionaries. But more than visionaries, we can be co-creators in a conscious and intentional way to make the future that we want, both individually and collectively. Om Shanti. Peace.
Thank you, Sister Gayatri, for your wise words, and especially for linking something as large as the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and making that very practical for us on a daily basis as a way to create peace in our world. A big view, a macro aim, and a micro approach, each of us every day with our thoughts, our words, our actions, and the choices we make. Thank you so much for being our representative at the United Nations with your peace, your stability, your kindness, and your deep wisdom. Stay with us, everyone. We are about to have a panel discussion with a friend from South Africa, another friend from the United Kingdom, and a local friend here from Antigonish, speaking to this topic of how do we create peace in a very divided world.